Excellent. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you so much. We're so excited to convene once again with all of you. We've got a really great webinar today. And just as a reminder, we're going to do a lot of interaction today. So we're going to have breakout rooms. So we're very excited about that. Yeah, so this is, it's the number 6 webinar that we've done since the shelter-in-place order happened. And we want to just give you some technical announcements. You are muted, and unless you're an interpreter, we ask that you please turn your video off. If you're joining by phone or by tablet, please go ahead and connect those two together. On the next slide, we have some info on how to do that. On your phone, you basically press pound, the participant ID, and then pound again. For any technological assistance, if you could go ahead and write tech in the chat, and we will have somebody help you out. We have a whole bunch of folks on the team today. If we can advance the next couple of slides, we have an enhanced team today because we're doing the breakout room. So we had a bunch of folks join us to help out with facilitation. And we did want to give you guys a little bit of a heads up. Zoom has been acting particularly squirrely this morning. There, if you could advance to the team slide, that would be great. Like I said, so if you get disconnected or something crazy happens, it's all cool. Just sign back in, and we'll make sure and find you and place you in the right spot. So it seems like we're having some problems advancing the slides, but we'll go ahead and let folks know. We have your regular dual enrollment webinar CLP team is myself. I'm Naomi Castro. We've got Mal Amanda Isa. We've got Sherry Shojai, and we've got Adair Flores is our Wizard of Oz guru. And today we also have some support from Chris Palmer, who's a senior director, and Shia Smith Miyazaki, who's a director with CLP. So we're really excited that they are able to join us. On the next slide, we'll talk to you about the basics of the webinar. So for folks who've been joining in for a while, you know that we started these because shelter in place happened. All of a sudden, our colleges were online and our high schools were online, and there was a lot of frustrations, and people were kind of freaking out a little bit. So we kind of got that settled. And people are up and moving now, although it's still a little bit crazy. And so we wanted to kind of bring this community together and try and problem solve. So if we can move on to the next slide, CLP has all of these resources in a location on our website. We'll drop the link in there in the chat. We'll drop that link in the chat, and then we have some ways that we're trying to offer folks to interact in the chat. So if you have questions for a specific panelist, if you could type their name, like in all caps, that really helps us, and we'll get that question to that panelist. If you have a general question, just type general in all caps and then write what the question is. And if you have an idea that you'd like to share, or some resources or something that you want to share with the group at large, go ahead and put in idea, and that will help us capture all of that. We have just a few updates. If we can go to slide 8. We have a few updates. As many of you know, the May revised budget has come out, and it's pretty intense. There's cuts across the board, as we had expected. In the slides, and you will get a copy of all these slides after this event, I've got a link to the governor's proposed budget. We also have a link to the California Edge Coalition did a summary of the budget, and Ed Trust West also did a kind of a response to the budget. In terms of dual enrollment, one of the biggest things is that there was a $5 million proposed investment in the January budget for dual enrollment instructional materials, and that has been removed in the May revise. And I also wanted to just put up there the wonderful, amazing organization TICAS did a live stream yesterday. It was a digital summit on state finances and higher ed in the wake of COVID-19. Very informative. And there's a link to the YouTube archive of the summit. And you may have seen in the news as well that the California Community College Chancellor's Office and 5 districts are suing the Federal Department of Education over disparities in the CARES Act funding and support for students. If you want the Chancellor's Office updates, we highly suggest you get those. They're really informative, and they do webinars every Wednesday. That's kind of like the state of the state. So on the next slide, we have just some visuals of how you can find those. If you go to the Chancellor's Office website, there's a big red bar at the top of the website. And if you click on that, it'll take you to the COVID-19 mailing list, and you just all the updates, but sign up for that mailing list and you'll get some really good info. CLP also has some internet resources that are specific for dual enrollment partnerships that we have on slide 11. There, if you could move on, actually, let's go ahead and move on to slide 12. And so those are all there for you. You'll get all those, and the links are in the chat, and you'll get them when we send you the presentation. But we also, for this webinar, as we said in the announcements, there's going to be some breakout rooms. And sometimes these go a little squirrely, and we want to try and plan as best we can. So we're going to ask everyone now to do it's called nonverbal participation on Zoom. And there's some buttons you can look at, and I'll walk you through those. On the bottom of your Zoom screen, mine is on the bottom, some people's on the top, there's a gray bar that has lots of menu items, and one of them is participants. Right now I see we have 91 participants. So if you click on that, a window of all the participants will pop up. And at the bottom of that window, there are some options. So there's, sometimes they might be a little different depending on what you have, what update you have, but there is a yes button. So we're going to ask right now if people are planning on staying for the breakout sessions. If you could press the yes button, then we can kind of count it up and we'll know how many rooms to make. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to our amazing presenters today. We are so excited. We have just some wonderful colleagues. We've got Stephanie Feger from Coast Community College District. We've got Sharon Turner, who's a K-12 TAP from the Bay Area. And we also have Loanne Tran from Santiago Canyon College. We're so excited. Loanne's going to help us out with facilitation. And Stephanie and Sharon are going to kind of give us some information about this project that they've been thinking through, these projects that are kind of aligning. And that's going to be the focus of our breakouts today. So Stephanie, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Naomi, and good morning, everybody. It's exciting to be here, and really, I've learned so much through these problem-solving webinars and meetings, and, I think that we're moving into this next phase of work, which is problem-solving moving forward. How do we just not react to what's currently a crisis, but how do we think through next steps to get our students on board, especially thinking about the fall semester and what that's going to take place. So, I'm from Orange County and work with a Pathways Scale-Up project that we've brought together through our strong workforce funding. So that's a multi-year project where we really focus on bringing together people to really figure out some of the common processes and best practices and what kinds of tools that we can collectively use. And so some of the things that we've done is we've convened a leadership academy for about 20 people who we worked with CCEMC to launch that leadership academy. We've done a program improvement survey. with students. Really what we wanted to do is get their perspective and experiences in dual enrollment. We've developed practice briefs, so we did things on online educational resources, using labor market information. And we also produced a dual enrollment video that really highlights student success stories. So I think you might get a chance to look at that when we do the kind of transition to the breakout rooms. And we also have a regional handbook in development. We've actually borrowed from some of the work in Bay Area. So Sharon's work up there with her team and her region has really informed our work. And we convene regularly through network meetings. Obviously, we're doing that all through Zoom now. So there's a lot that's going on that we are really kind of building on. And I think this orientation piece, especially moving online, is something that we're really interested in doing now. So our next kind of, for the next slide, we wanted to kind of dig into some of the results that we had with the survey, the student survey. Let's see. So Adair, is that slide up? Okay, so I'll just kind of walk through what the survey was and maybe some of the results. I'm sure this is all the lag time will kind of work itself out. So with the CCAP program improvement survey, what we did is we did that survey of students in dual enrollment programs for 2 years, and we worked with Hanover Research to develop and roll out that survey. And the survey really asks students about their familiarity with various processes prior to enrollment and taking their dual enrollment course. So let me just see, is kind of, I think everything's going okay so far. But okay, there we go. There's that survey results. So what you can see in that kind of circle graph is one of the things that we asked students about is their orientation. And so this was over 500 students that responded to our survey this year. And we asked them about their online, their orientation experience. Did they have an orientation, and whether it was face-to-face and online? So the good news is that 60% of students said that they had an orientation, and that was an improvement from the year before. Sort of the big urgency, I think, that we have now post-COVID is that only 6% of students said that they had an online orientation. So we know that's something that we need to build up. And then we asked the students about some of the things involving their kind of familiarity with processes, things like tracking performance, expectations of college courses, and grading processes. And students said that they were all either moderately to extremely familiar. That was in the 71 to 73 percentage points. So you can see in the green and gray, that's kind of moderate to extremely familiar. The familiarity dropped off a little bit around getting information about dual enrollment. That was 63%. And then registering for college classes, again, 53%. Application processes, 48%. And then transferring credit for other colleges was down at 32%. That's something that we really can improve on. So obviously, there's a lot of things that we can improve upon. And I think the collaboration by bringing this group together to really start thinking about what would the kind of key areas around an orientation look like. So on our next slide, we really are starting to think about this in Orange County about what would this orientation look like. And while we have a lot of different processes and procedures that involve orientation, we also know that we need to have a more holistic experience for students. And so this whole idea of creating kind of a student perspective, more of a student-facing journey is important. So we're really thinking about this whole idea of using a student journey map to really map out that experience, because that's really going to help take a student from their initial entry point to where they need to go step by step to get familiar with support services and really develop that college identity. So this is kind of this whole idea of developing an orientation, but using the student journey lens. And, sort of in the next stage, I think this is not so we can move to the next slide. This is not so kind of disparate from what we're all familiar with in terms of, where we've been with the vision for success and, where we are now with implementing that vision for success, but in another format, another modality, kind of using these online tools. And so while COVID has changed kind of how we work, I think what hasn't changed is, the focus on the student journey with the vision for success and really focusing on those commitments that we have to students. So it's focusing on students' end goals, really thinking about how we design with the student in mind, and then pairing high expectations with high support. So those are all, I think, some of the features, some of the kinds of values that we really want to instill in the work that we're doing. So and we also know that, as Naomi mentioned, with the May revise, it was very interesting because when I looked at this, expanding access through technology and innovative practices was one of the headings that were included in the May revise. So, there's obviously a lot of alignment that needs to happen with different technology platforms, things like Canvas are really seen as kind of, the through line from community college to CSU and UC. So I think there's a lot of consolidation that's really taking place that we can really kind of use that consolidation to our advantage in terms of transition into these technology platforms. And then kind of finally, in terms of thinking about what these platforms might look like, we kind of can move to the next slide. This is something that this graphic highlights some of the key features that we can really start to draw upon as kind of the features for this online support system. This is something that I think that we've taken a look at through, we all are involved in building up these different kinds of systems. And I think some of the things that I've heard in previous problem-solving webinars is, all of this idea of things that making it easier to navigate online and what kinds of materials can we draw upon. So these kinds of things include the guides and the step-by-step processes, as well as things like frequently asked questions, videos. The whole idea here is to start simple and really kind of build up based on feedback. Some of the other features that we want to have are a digital hub, really starting to think about what standard generalized information that we all need to be drawing upon and what needs to be tailored and customized locally for each institution. And then some of the things that I heard most recently, it was about the different kinds of notification systems and kind of this push notification that is taking place with alerts and updates. And then finally, it's really kind of bringing together the dual enrollment teams and the ownership that you all have so that you can kind of frequently update this information. And one of the things that I noticed, I got this support system, this example is, I've been reading some of the McKinsey work because they've really covered this from a business perspective, from an education perspective, not just support systems, but what the whole response to COVID is. And one of the things that really caught my attention was how doing things that used to take 1 to 2 or 3 years are now kind of being scaled in terms of a matter of days and weeks. And so I think it's a really strong opportunity for us to really think about what can we do to prepare for fall. And so let me just turn it over to Sharon now, and she can walk us through some of the topics that they've been addressing in terms of pulling together dual enrollment in the Bay Area.
Great, thanks, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here today. Thanks so much for the invitation to come and speak with all of you. And I know so many of you are from the Bay Area, so everything really that I've talked about is from our Bay Region Dual Enrollment Exchange, which is really a community of practice, similar to what Stephanie is coordinating in Orange County, just to support K-12 and community college practitioners as we, you know, in the current moment, figure out how to move these classes online and support our high school students in this new environment, but really for all the obstacles and questions that come up in dual enrollment. So a little bit of background, we started our Bay Region dual enrollment exchange, which is really a community of practice, shortly after AB 288 rolled out. Just we knew people would be figuring this out, have lots of questions, and we just really wanted to create a space where people could learn from each other since it was such a new thing. So we have K-12 and community college practitioners. We were meeting on a quarterly basis, but then when COVID-19 came on the scene and this rapid transition into distance learning, we actually have been meeting on a weekly basis. And then just a couple of weeks ago, we're going to a bi-weekly basis. So over the last few years, we've created lots of tools and resources for the region. As Stephanie referenced, we have a dual enrollment administrator guidebook. Many of you on this call were interviewed for that, talking about everything from what are the initial conversations you should have with college administration, with K-12 administration to really begin the process of dual enrollment. What are some best practices people have around problem-solving textbooks costs, working with unions, getting teachers, community college teachers up to speed, working with high school students if that's new to them. One of the other resources that we actually created before the dual enrollment is an articulation handbook. So that is still something we reference. Articulation is still always in the back pocket. Talked about a great option for students in combination with dual enrollment, or if dual enrollment is not an option for a reason. And all of these are live links, so you should be able to access them as well. And then most recently, we really heard from the practitioners in our community of practice that there was a need for professional development for instructors. So specifically, community college instructors that were teaching in the high school environment. So we worked with Naomi and Amanda from Career Ladders Project and put together a really robust professional development that looks at what does the adolescent brain look like, so we can think about what are some of the best ways to work and teach high school students. We talked about working with English language learners, all kinds of different student populations, and really some just background information on dual enrollment as well. What are some things to think about in terms of FERPA? What do community college students or community college instructors who maybe haven't taught in that high school setting working with minors, and what are some of the things that they need to keep in mind there? So this idea of an online orientation is actually been kicked around in this group for a while, but we focused on different things. And as Stephanie said, the current COVID-19 environment has really provided an opportunity to speed up some things that we've been thinking about, but there is more pressure now as we think about fall, as the majority of our colleges will be online. So over the last few weeks, we used our meetings to talk about if we did an online orientation that would be for an audience, what would those audience be? So of course we thought of students first and foremost, but that also parents are a big part of the education, letting parents know there are other college opportunities for students outside of AP courses, and what dual enrollment is, the different types of dual enrollment, and also working with counselors. Let them know, if counselors are helping students think about their post-secondary options, what is also currently in existence with their college partners that students may be interested in taking advantage of. So one of the things that came up is just an explanation, probably across all these audiences, of what are the types of early college credit, so that people can understand the difference. I'm sure it is not common knowledge to know the difference between a CCAP course and a non-Ccap course. Location of courses, that sometimes courses might be taught on the high school campus, sometimes students might be going to the college campus. What is articulation? And again, what are AP courses? So how did these differ? So that is something that we thought would be a universal topic, so across the different audiences and across different colleges. We have 28 colleges that we work with in the Bay Area. It is never easy to get everyone on the same page, and it's not really necessary. We can create potentially a few videos that colleges can pick and choose for what they want, and then customize as they see fit with their own specific information based on who students should reach out to or what certain dates are for dropping courses. We thought it was a more universal or common topic to talk about what does it mean to be a college student? How are you a good college student? How many hours can you expect to study per course? And you can see in the next slide, we were also really thinking about this from the student journey. As Stephanie was talking, we think coming at these orientation topics from a student lens, hearing from students, high school students who became college students through dual enrollment, what was that experience like for them? And basically, what are some of the things that us as adults, not in this situation, wouldn't necessarily think of that would be helpful for students to know. So other topics that we've thought about is the cost benefit of being a dual enrollment student, probably really useful for parents to know. What college resources are available to high school students? If you're now a college student, how can you get access to counselors, access to student disability services, tutoring services, possibly an introduction to Canvas, as colleges are moving or have moved, or are using that, or definitely using it more as we're in the online environment, and possibly thinking about how we can involve students in the production of these videos as well.
Okay, so I'm not sure, Sharon, did you freeze? Are you good? Oh, you're still there.
Yes, I'm still here. I'll move a little.
Thank you.
Yes,
for all of our participants, we've had a lot, every single one of your facilitators and co-hosts on the call today has had issues with Zoom. So we're thinking it's an internet-wide something, or not completely sure. So we're working behind the scenes to try and figure that out as best we can. We did have we had two questions. One for Sharon: does the Bay Area Exchange have a grant to support your work?
So great question. It is actually supported through Strong Workforce Funds. So I have, in the Bay Area, we use the Language Regional Joint Venture. So that is regional strong workforce dollars that I applied for to support dual enrollment, working with counselors, and some other projects that I do. So it is strong workforce dollars that is funding me. And the additional funds that we've used, like working with Career Ladders Project to develop the professional development dual enrollment resources for teachers, have also come out of those strong workforce dollars.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much. We're going to cut questions short right here, and we're going to do a little bit of a fandango. So Adair, if you can advance to the next slide. Part of our Zoom troubles this morning is that the Zoom is taking long to do everything. So we're going to take the next, I'm going to say 4 minutes. We're going to show you a video. I'm actually going to show that video from my screen. So we're going to have a little bit of a transition there. This is your moment to watch the video, stretch your legs, take a bio break if you need it. But at 10:35, we will be switching into breakout rooms. So if we can advance to the, yeah, we'll give further instructions at that time. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. It's going to be very exciting. And we will watch a short video. Everyone has a chance to stretch. And when we come back, we'll also need some patience as we do the breakout rooms. But then we're going to get into some work where we can field test these ideas. So here we go.
Dual enrollment's a very exciting opportunity for high school students to earn early college credit. Students who take dual enrollment have a higher success rate for graduating high school.
Can you turn on the captions for the video?
And they're having high success rates in those courses.
The importance of having dual enrollment in high schools is to help students transition from high school to community college into their career, make it easier for them to get a job while they're going to college.
I wasn't sure about going to college or not. As a first generation student, it's challenging because you don't really have anyone to guide you through. But in the end, I decided that higher education was the best way to go. I started off by taking 2 dual enrollment classes while I was in high school. I love video games, and that just ended up taking me down a rabbit hole of breaking things from a security standpoint. I interned here at Hulu for 6 months and got converted as a security analyst.
During my first conversation with Anthony, I realized that A, he had a passion for this field, but also that he was learning things on his own and the willingness to learn. He worked immediately on some security concerns that we had, ensure that we have the data that we need, that we keep status of how things are, now as a consultant for us.
The student diversity, in addition to being taught by a college professor, you're building yourself into a world vision by being around other like-minded, motivated students where education is a maximum priority.
Because it's a community college, you get professors who are experienced, who've written textbooks, who have PhDs, and who have been spending their life's work investing into the subject they're teaching you. So it gave me the opportunity to really experience education in a deeper level than any other high schooler could if they weren't taking dual enrollment classes.
We start them with a mindset class that teaches them everything from how to solve a problem, how to network, how to brand themselves or present a business idea. In terms of entrepreneurship, it's taking things that they enjoy doing and trying to learn how to find opportunities to make money doing that and make a career out of it.
I've always liked cars. I thought college was a luxury more in a sense, but now after dual enrollment, I decided I want to make this my career. I'm more equipped than the normal student, and now here I am after I graduated college.
I come into the dual enrollment program. He had the opportunity to compete with the Orange County Auto Dealers Association competition. They won Automotive High School of the Year. So Andrew has his first 2 years of college paid.
So we are going to stop the video there with Andrew getting his first 2 years of college paid. Awesome, Andrew. Fantastic. So I'm actually going to do another screen share to talk about how we're going to transition to these breakout rooms. And again, we really appreciate your patience with this. Let's see, go into present mode. Here we go. So we have a lot of people. If you haven't been in a breakout room before, this is what it looks like. You're going to get a little pop-up menu, or pop-up in the corner. You can see it in the corner of the screen that says you're being invited to join a room. Press the join button, or else you'll be in this kind of strange limbo. It's going to look like the Zoom is ending, but it really hasn't. And then you open the chat again, and you'll be able to see a link to some shared slides. And we're going to use these slides in the breakout rooms. We also have facilitators assigned to all the breakout rooms. And so those facilitators also have access to the slides. And so they will be sharing more instructions with you. And if you aren't able to join us, now is probably the time to bow out and look for that email that will have all of these resources for you. So I'm going to go ahead and stop share. And we are going to move into our breakout rooms. I think there is transitioning us to that. So just be patient. It might take just a minute or two, but yeah, we'll be there in just a second. Wow, wow, wow. Are we all back? Let's see, people are still popping in. 47 folks. I don't know about you guys. We had a really, really great discussion in our group. And we did want to remind folks that we are going for another 15 minutes. We also know you're all adults, so if you have another obligation, you know, we kindly say goodbye, but hopefully you can stay with us because we want to hear some of this incredible work that happened. Adair, are you able to share your screen? I think we would be on slide 26. Excellent. Thank you so very much. And thank you, everybody, with your patience, as Zoom has just been a bit unusual, extra unusual today. So we have a few minutes to do some sharing out. I'm actually wondering, I know we had the main room had some really cool things going on, and it sounded like great discussion. Could we start with the main room?
Yeah, I can share for the main room. We were all those who got bounced out of different rooms or whatever Zoom was deciding to do to us. So in the main room, we were just discussing, we were a little bit slow to start just considering those elements, but from NPC, Christian was just sharing a little bit about how they've set up these counseling sessions for the dual enrollment students, how there is work between counselors from the high schools and the college. There was, from Aloni, there was shared that there is online orientation for instructors of dual enrollment, but thinking like how can we create something that's for the students. And then one thing that was pretty neat, a forward-thinking comment was made like about how do we talk about transitioning from community college to four-year with those dual enrollment courses in mind. So a lot of different things discussed. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Is there somebody from Breakout Room 1 who could share just a couple of highlights?
Hi. Okay, to be honest, I'm not sure which group I was in, but I'm assuming I was in one. So my name is Ophelia Ramirez. I work at LA Creative College, and during our group, we kind of discussed like the stuff. Well, luckily, I was actually one of my colleagues was actually on the group, so that was amazing. But so we were able to share like the things that Trade Tech has been working on. I mean, we have. So we are actually having a summer session for some of our partners. So we're working on getting all those documentation, like, you know, how we've been able to change from in-person paperwork, a lot of the stuff like the enrollment, and how we've been able to transition it to the online format. And just like the orientations that we've created. So we have on tomorrow, we actually have a Gear Up orientation with parents, where we're going to be introducing them to financial aid, the Dream Center. We're going to talk to them about like the different options that they have through, not only for the students, but for the parents as well. How like I run the Saturday program at our campus for students. So I've been in the summer program. It's the summer and Saturday program. And so I've been doing like online orientation with the families. We've been, you know, like we've introduced a lot of the things that they need to know. So like how everything's online, how they need to familiarize themselves with Canvas and PeopleSoft, which is our like student platform, and just getting them more comfortable and at least aware of everything that we have available that they need to know. And also just having orientations for different partners, so that their students can join and can actually hear that as well. So we've identified partners. We try to target different people, so they know the information as much as possible, as much as we can share. But we heard some really good things about. I mean, right now you were talking about teacher, like instructor orientations. I'm like, that might actually be a really good idea for our group for our instructors that we work with.
Yeah. There's been some really great ideas forwarded. Yeah, that's why I cannot wait to get into these slides where people took their notes and kind of dissect it all. Also, if you took notes somewhere other than a slide, if you could be so kind as to drop that in the chat, either link it or you can upload the file, that would be very, very helpful for us so we could compile all of these. Thank you, Ophelia. we're going to move on. I'm going to jump around a little bit, and I'm going to ask if you could report specifically on the topics, the orientation topics, if there was something you wanted to see in addition. So if there was an addition that something you thought of that wasn't quite there, or maybe something you wanted more emphasis on. So let's go to breakout room 3, because I see some really intense notes and people are like changing the fonts right now. So if someone from breakout room 3.
Sure, that was my group. So I will share briefly. Let's see, Stephanie from Cypress College was sharing a lot about knowledge around different technology platforms that students would be using. So software, so we talked about Canvas, but also Zoom or other platforms that students might be using. And I have to say, what was also really interesting is we talked about the concern about keeping students engaged online, and how do you do that? So we talked about learning from rural districts that given distance between students, how far apart their high schools and colleges are, they've been doing online for a while, so they could teach some how-tos of how to be good online learners there. And also talked about support with counselors, so e-learning quality, needing to understand what challenges faculty are experiencing. So thinking about not only the online orientation, but how to make that, how to bolster it and support the experience for students, which is not that dissimilar from what everybody has to do when we're face-to-face, but there's the added hurdle of the online environment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking at your notes right now, and everyone's welcome to go back into there and maybe add a couple more. We're probably going to close it off by this afternoon, but you know, if you have some more notes that you want to put in there, that would be fantastic. Let's jump to breakout room 6. One of the, and again, on the topics for an online orientation, one of the first things you wrote was explaining the difference between college and high school transcripts. So someone from breakout room 6, the purple room.
Yeah, so I can share. When we included the difference between college and high school transcripts, maybe we thought, for example, explaining the difference to the students and the importance of their college transcripts, and that how that anything that they complete is permanent, and also explaining the difference between getting an F, withdrawing. I know right now a lot of colleges are offering excuse withdrawal, what that looks like. So maybe just more in depth so students can understand the difference and what taking a class in college will look like on their college transcripts.
Thank you. Thank you. And I do see something too in your notes about navigating the college portal and registration. And one of our topics was what's the difference, what kinds of things can be statewide and what kinds of things have to be local. And so navigating your college website and all that entails is definitely something that needs to be local. Let's see, I think we have time for one more. Can we ask breakout room 7 if you can report back on the themes, the topics for an online orientation? I see some things in there that I haven't seen before. It's very exciting.
Yeah, so I popped some of our topics into the chat. This is Amy Myers from Sierra College. And I think there were 3 things that I think came up that were particularly important. First is FERPA, really with that parent as a part of the audience and the student, what it means to be involved in a college climate with student privacy. There was also some challenges around, as you've talked about, specific versus general. And even within a community college district, there's often multiple schools. And so people are having to look at their PowerPoints and their information and pull out what's too specific in order to create something that can speak to the whole group. And then we finished up with some interesting conversations around what it's going to mean when the college is online and the high school may not be, as far as training and support. So there we go.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's, yeah. I have no idea what fall is going to look like, but I think I have a better idea for the colleges than I do for the high schools. So just sending all love and health to the folks making those decisions and planning that all out. If we can go back to, yes, go ahead.
Yes.
So if we can go back to
what I'm hearing, it looks like the high schools, well, apparently some of the high schools, at least in my area, in the Bay Area, they're planning to have hybrid courses. So they'll break them down based on the classroom capacities that they can handle. For instance, if they have 30 students in a classroom, it means that they would only be able to accommodate 6 students in any classroom at any given time. So 6 students per class. Those students will be, that 30 student class will be divided up, and then they'll go throughout the day teaching 6 students at a time for each class.
Thank you.
So it may be interesting to see how that impacts dual enrollment.
Thank you, thank you. And can I ask who's speaking and what college you're with?
Oh, yes, I'm with Ohlone College. My name is Darlene Gonsalves.
Thank you.
You're listening to Andrea, who's my interpreter.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ohlone is doing some amazing stuff. We're really excited to hear more. But thank you so much. And of course, that will change across the state, right? We also have Los Angeles Unified School District, which is one of the largest school districts in the country, I think second largest. And so we'll see what they might do something different. Yeah, we just don't know, but yeah, thank you for sharing that insight. Appreciate it. Can we have the next slide? We have just a couple of more things to wrap up with everyone in the last minute. We are going to have another one of these on June 4th. If we don't have your email address, please drop it in the chat. And that way we can make sure you get the announcements. We also have a community of practice on Basecamp. And so we'll explain to you in that follow-up email how you can join that. It has high school practitioners, college practitioners, nonprofits, all the big wide community. We'll also be posting everything to the Vision Resource Center. So we're excited about that. We're getting that process up and running. Let's see, yeah, so these are more Basecamp features. Practitioners have been sharing all kinds of resources in there. It is exactly 11:15. We thank you all so much. This is the most awesome, amazing community to work with, and I feel such a pleasure being able to touch base with all of you at least a couple times a month and problem solve together. We'll be sending out lots of info and also follow-up info on how you can get involved with this statewide orientation project. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Take care. Stay safe. We'll talk to you soon.